I'm Ashlyn Penny, here with Cheyenne Randall, a mixed media artist.
Yeah, so my name is Cheyenne Randall. I'm an artist. You want a little background on who I am and where I'm from and stuff?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's great.
I don't know how far back you want to go, but I was born in Minneapolis, Minnesota, 1978, and I was raised in Minneapolis until I was 9 years old, and then moved out to Seattle, Washington from the time that I was 9 until I was about 21 years old. And yeah, where do I start? My dad was an artist. He was a visual artist, two-dimensional artist. He did a lot of like drawings, graphite drawings, paintings. He's Native American. He's an enrolled member of the Sioux tribe from Rosebud Indian Reservation in South Dakota. My mom is not Native, and but I was mostly raised by my mother, and she was just always really encouraging for me to just focus on my artwork. I started to do artwork when I was really young. I was always the friend that was drawing super trippy drawings or, things like that. I still have my high school binder in my studio. It's full of drawings and not homework. It was really hard for me to pay attention in school. I think I had what is considered a learning disability. So yeah, right after high school, I just sort of focused on my artwork, but then, in your 20s, you have to work. So I ended up working, in the trades. I was a carpenter for many years, house painter, kind of traveled, lived all over the country doing that until, 2014, when my career really started to take off, partially thanks to Instagram, to social media. So that brings us up to about the last 6 or so years, 7 years of just kind of just working in that realm. So
social media really impacted your career?
Social media did. It really did. Before that, in 2014, before that, I was working on a lot of my mixed medias. I was doing a lot of a lot of my native, a lot of like cultural based work, pencil drawings, graphite drawings, mixed media, and they were I was selling them. They were moving. I'd post them on Facebook. People would be interested in them, and I'd sell them. And then I sort of figured out that Instagram was really new to me. I think it was new to everybody. In like 2014, 2013. And I started doing these Photoshop things with the tattoos. And then that's when they started getting like people, like pretty much like in a series of like a couple of months, I started noticing I was down there like around like 20 likes per post and stuff like that. And then it just shot up to like 200. And then, yeah, in 2014 is when it went viral. It was like, something happened. I don't know. I woke up one morning and they were, my friend said that I was on like the Yahoo cover page talking about the Shop Tattoos series. And, I didn't really do anything. I didn't try to like make it happen, or I was just making these images. And then somewhere it got picked up, and it was like the way the media works is that they just basically copy and paste each other's stories. A lot of it ended up being like clickbait, and just kind of like it was, one of them was in the Daily Mail, and like the comment section, everyone hated it, and they just were like tearing me apart. And it was like a really disturbing experience. If I had to describe it, it was just really strange to see people talking about your work and talking about you. And but it's what shot it off. It's basically like people started going to my Instagram from there, and I went from like 2,000 followers to like, I don't know, like 14,000 in like a day, and it just kind of kept going from there. Then it was like a number of celebrities started to like share my work, and then it kind of went even further from there. So social media really is what did it.
That's amazing. I mean, I love the variety of your artwork on Instagram. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
can you describe more specifically the kind of art that you create?
The kind of art that I create, yeah. I mean, what you see mostly in my social media is what is the digital work. I think that's kind of what I'm known for, is the digital work. I'm starting to, I think I'd love to be a little bit more known for like my the wheat paste work that I do, and the street art kind of stuff that I do. But it usually all starts with the computer. Even a lot of my paintings these days start like in Photoshop. I'll take an idea, concept, and I'll sort of work it out, either on like in Procreate or in Photoshop. And but yeah, mostly it's the shop tattoos work that people have they'll recognize me for that. And
What would you say was the type of training or schooling that went into this career?
the type of training or schooling, I I didn't. I would say that the type of training or career, I mean, I really didn't intend for. I mean, I didn't go to school. I went to high school. I had, like I said earlier, I kind of had a really difficult time paying attention, remembering things, learning. I ended up going to like an alternative high school. It was like a pass or fail. They didn't do grade point averages, and but it was a great school. It was it was more of like conversational classes, and which was great. But I didn't do any college. I wanted to go to art school. I wanted to go to like a fine art school. It just didn't. Those are really expensive, and I didn't have the money, and I didn't have the even being an enrolled member in my tribe, I didn't have. There was not appropriate funding for that. They want to mostly fund natives to go to like medical school or law school or things like that, which is totally understandable. So as a carpenter and as a painter is really what I focused on in my 20s. I guess you could say like that trained me for a lot of my installation work that I do. I do some pretty massive installation works. Some of them are like 30 by 50 feet, and they're a lot more difficult than I think sometimes people think it's pretty simple what I do, but it's actually pretty difficult to organize an installation like that and then accomplish it. And there's a lot of measuring and planning and stuff like that. So the trades really helped me with that, but there's nothing could really prepare me for social media. That wasn't really a thing. I don't even know. I mean, I think probably nowadays there's like classes you can take for that to like manage your social media or whatever. I don't know. I do everything really unorthodoxly anyway, so it's like it's all just sort of happened. If that makes sense.
It sounds like you've accomplished a lot. Are there any moments or accomplishments that stand out to you in your career?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few. There's some of them are like actual events. These things that like are pretty wild. Like in like 2015, after everything kind of went viral or whatever, I sort of developed a connection with an actor, James Franco, and he and I kind of went back and forth and talked about like doing like a collaboration. So he ended up coming up to Seattle where I was living at the time and doing we did like a mural together for this gallery, and then that was like this giant piece on this wall that we ended up selling to somebody from Portland. And then I would go to LA like a bunch, and I was sort of teaching him how to like wheat paste for a minute. And it was really interesting because it was like I think he was kind of interested in like what like the art scene was kind of about or whatever. He does paintings, and it was weird. It was funny, but it stands out for sure. I mean, having James Franco get on a plane to come up and do a mural with you is pretty trippy. I lost touch with him, which is fine. I'm not really super interested in the Los Angeles. Like I did a lot of like trips back and forth to LA to do like wheat paste stuff, and I kind of got caught up in like this after like, when stuff like that happens, your ego gets kind of inflamed a little bit, and you just sort of, it's hard to recognize that like people are interested in what you do, and they're interested in like being around it. And then recognizing like sort of what that does to your ego. And so being able to sort of stand back from that and get away from that was sort of an accomplishment as well. And just I did a residency program in 2000. I did that in 2017 for the Heard Museum in Arizona, which is where I went down. And basically, the Heard Museum is a Native American fine arts and contemporary museum, and they have works all the way back down to like they have archival pieces they found in like from like thousands of years ago down in their basement up to like current painters today in the native world. And they basically had me come down there and just paste the heck out of their whole facility, just all over the outside of their building, inside their facility. And that was pretty unheard of, I think, for somebody to come down there and like basically do street art all over the museum. So that was really cool. Yeah, and mostly just it's just been really fun to be able to like just do, like I just did the Wide Open Walls Mural Festival here in Sacramento, and just be able to continue to work and you know, there's something that happens when you go through this sort of viral thing and then you continue to work. There's like this sort of like there's like this weird pressure to like, you know, are you still relevant? Do people still recognize your work? And it's always important. I mean, I always remind myself like every single day there's somebody who just stumbled upon my artwork, and that more people don't know who I am than do, and that there's plenty of reasons to get up in the morning and work and to keep like creating new work. And you know, my biggest accomplishment, I think, is just connecting with people through my art. Being able to do that on the daily is a pretty awesome deal.
What or who would you say is your inspiration for what you do now?
Who is my inspiration for what I do now? You know, this might be a little esoteric, but it's very true. I would say that my ancestors are my biggest inspiration, and that is because being Native American, I have there's sort of a lot of people don't understand necessarily that you know, we don't have long hair and we don't ride horses all the time, and we're here and we're working and we're trying to make a better place for, you know, a better future for our generation, for the next generations. And you know, and I think the idea of trying to make my ancestors proud is one of the things that really motivates me. My father's no longer alive, so you know, I like to believe that he's still watching and still, you know, rooting for me. And I could say things like, you know, I could say things like, you know, like Shepard Fairey and like JR. They're huge inspiration. They're big. You know, they inspire me a lot. But really, what motivates me is making my ancestors proud.
What has been your favorite piece to create so far?
Probably, I think probably that's a tough one, because some of my favorite pieces were from, you know, back in like 2014 when it was just this giant barn and these like abandoned houses that literally, like, the interior of the rooms were still left the way they were, they looked like they were left like that like 100 years ago. And there was like wood tables in there with like little plates on the table, and this was just like right outside of Seattle, and that was sort of my playground. That was sort of where I just like I did like a stencil on the wall, and I did like wheat paste all over the barn, and that kind of stuff is like my sort of some of my favorite stuff that I've done. Yeah. I mean, if you scroll deep into the Indian Giver Instagram, you'll start to see some of that stuff. I know it takes a while, but in like 2015, 2014, like around there is when I was really starting to just sort of play with like the pasting the West stuff, and a lot of that was, for me, was a lot of fun. I would drive out to like Montana and just like find these abandoned places and just wheat paste them. So that was just all on like just for fun, you know. There was no projects, there was no nobody was paying me to do it, or it was just like, gosh, let's just go out into the country and just do some wheat pasting, you know?
Yeah, that's amazing that you can make art out of anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Would you say you experience artist block? And if so, how do you overcome it?
Yes, absolutely. How do I, overcoming artist block sometimes is involves getting under a blanket and watching like, a whole bunch of like really garbage TV. I don't know. I struggle with it all the time. I think especially with like, the whole like quarantining thing that went down, and the way social media is structured, you feel a lot of times this pressure to be creating content or to be prolific in these like, like great artists make great art when like the world's falling apart kind of thing. And I found quite the opposite experience, which has been a little bit deflating, which is like I just get kind of depressed, and I don't feel like I'm tapped into like, I think a lot of times artists they have like a special like landline to like this creative well, and sometimes I feel like it's just not there. And I can say that I know that when I get off my butt and I exercise, a lot of times getting off my butt and moving my body helps a lot. But I don't know. There's been times when I've been able to go into the studio and just make a bunch of garbage art and just know that that's fine. It hits the floor, and as long as I'm moving my body and making something, that like something will come out of that. But yeah, it's really a lot of times I think what's meant to happen is that as an artist you go through really creative periods, and then when you're not feeling it, it's more about accepting it and being okay with it, and knowing that like you're not in a race. You're not like there's nothing saying that you have to create something like magical today, that you can just sort of sit with like this period of time where you're not really feeling creative, because what's happening is that you're sort of rebuilding your creative, all those creative connections and all those things that create the artwork to begin with. They're resting, and they're like, you need to sort of just have that sort of like low period, and that if we don't look at it like as a sort of creative block, but as a sort of creative break, then, and just trusting that it comes back, is a big part of the process too.
And lastly, what advice would you give for any aspiring artists in your type of field?
Advice, I would say for sure, like, like I've said this before, and I do feel this way, and I know it's hard, especially it sort of contradicts what I just said, but creating something every day is pretty important. Like at least trying, but especially in the beginning. I mean, I think like I can say that a little bit now. I mean, I still have a ways to go. I've got there's paintings inside of me that have yet to be made, and so I know that I have a ways to go. I don't feel that I've made it by any means necessarily, but when I first started off, I was sort of obsessive about it, and I sort of just like attacked it. I think that if you want to be seen and you want your work to be you kind of have to make so much of it that it may annoy some people. But there's sort of like there's this, you have to just really like just go after it. You know what I mean? My suggestion, obviously you guys are in high school, as you age, life will come at you harder. And there's going to be a ton of distractions. There's going to be a ton of things that come towards you that, they're kind of important. Some of them, like, you have to learn life the way it comes at you. But art school, I can't speak for art school. I mean, but I would just say just create as much as you can. And it, however bad you want it, however bad you want it to happen is up to you. I mean, or however, it's really hard for me to describe, but you just have to just I don't know. You just have to work. You just have to make a lot of content. You know, you have to make a lot of work.